Well, good afternoon. My name is Robert Sumwalt, and I'm a board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. Today has been a very busy day for our investigators, and I wanted to describe to you what we've done so far. I will start out by talking about the information that we've learned from the cockpit voice recorder and from the flight data recorder. And I want to emphasize that this information that I'm going to give you is preliminary information which is subject to validation. But so with that caveat, I'll tell you what we know so far. The cockpit voice recorder is a 2-hour CVR. It contains good quality data. We have various parameters that we use to judge the quality of the CVR audio recording, and this is good quality. The CVR captures the entire accident flight. The accident flight was about 57 minutes long, the flight from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, up to the point of the accident. And their cruise altitude from Chapel Hill was 23,000 feet. Now, the Phenom 100, the accident aircraft, is certified for single pilot operation. And there was a passenger seated in the co-pilot seat for the entire flight from Chapel Hill. There was minimal conversation in the cockpit during the arrival. Now, air traffic control provided radar vectors for the RNAV GPS approach to runway 14 at Gaithersburg. There was an automated radio altitude call-out, a call-out at 500 feet, 32 seconds before the end of the recording. And this is just an automated call-out that many airplanes have, and it announces 500. And so, that was about 32 seconds before the end of the recording. Now, about 20 seconds before the end of the recording, there was an automated stall warning call-out, and this call-out continued all the way up until the end of the recording. This is an audio call-out that states, stall, 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 and it is there to announce an impending aerodynamic stall. Not a stall of the engines, an aerodynamic stall. Let's talk about the flight data recorder. It contained about 300 parameters, including the last 178 hours of operations of the aircraft. We do know from the FDR that the aircraft was configured for landing with flaps extended and the landing gear down for landing. Throughout the entire flight, the engine speeds followed their throttle commands. If the throttles were advanced, the engine speeds increased. If the throttles were retarded, the engine speeds reduced. The lowest recorded airspeed was approximately 88 knots. We're calling it 88 knots at this point, again, subject to validation, but we're saying 88 knots was the lowest recorded airspeed. And at that point, there were large excursions in pitch and in roll. About 2 seconds after the lowest recorded airspeed, the throttles were advanced and the engines responded. Now again, the FDR information, the CVR information, as I've just reported, is preliminary information subject to being validated. But we did want to give you the preliminary information so that you would have something to go on. Our structures group, they've spent the morning diagramming the wreckage. They've located all 4 corners of the aircraft, and that is accident investigator vernacular for locating the nose and the tail and both wingtips. And we want to locate the 4 corners of the aircraft to verify that the aircraft was all intact prior to the impact. And in fact, all 4 corners were located or accounted for at the accident site, meaning that the aircraft would have been intact prior to the initial impact. Our operations group is gathering information on the accident pilot. We do know that the accident pilot held an airline transport pilot certificate. He held a certified flight instructor certificate. He had approximately 4,500 flying hours. He held a current medical certificate. He was type rated in the Phenom 100. As has been widely reported in the media, the accident pilot had been involved in a prior accident in March of 2010. Let's talk about the engines. The power plants, the initial examination of both engines reveals no evidence of an in-flight fire, of a catastrophic engine failure, or an uncontainment. Both fans were able to be rotated by hand at the accident site. And the preliminary on-site look at the engines reveals no evidence of bird ingestion. Our human performance investigators have been interviewing the pilots that were in the area. There were 3 instructor pilots who were operating on or above the Montgomery County Air Park about the time of the accident. So 3 instructors, 1 was in the traffic pattern, and 2 were on the ground. So if the accident airplane, if this would be the runway, the accident airplane was approaching this way on runway 14. They crashed over here. One of the airplanes, the airplane in flight, was turning from his downwind leg to the base leg. Again, the accident would have been here. So this pilot would have had a view of the accident airplane. So there was that pilot and 2 that were on the ground. 2 pilots reported seeing the accident plane, and both reported seeing a series of pitch and roll excursions, steep bank angles, large pitch angles. The pilot who reported birds on the advisory frequency, and of course it's been, I've listened to the air traffic, to the live ATC, and I've heard the recordings of the accident pilot coming in for landing, and I've heard the reports of the birds. The pilot who reported the birds on the advisory frequency told investigators that birds were located about 1,000 feet down the runway, and that they were on the ground and not in the air. So the birds were supposedly about 1,000 feet down the runway, on the ground, not in the air. He stated that he did not observe any birds in the vicinity of the accident airplane or along the approach path. Our systems analysts are reviewing the flight data recorder data and locating various aircraft systems in the wreckage. Weather activity at the airport. The weather observation was taken about 10 minutes prior to the accident. At 10:35 a.m. is when the weather report was generated. It reported winds out of the northeast at 6 knots, 10 miles visibility. A few clouds reported at 2,100 feet above ground, an overcast layer at 3,200 feet above ground, and a temperature of -1 degree Celsius, -1 Celsius. Today, our air traffic control specialists have been interviewing controllers who handled the accident flight. Our aircraft performance investigators are working to determine if the aircraft was performing as designed. And our investigation is being assisted by the Federal Aviation Administration, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, SANEPA. SANEPA is the Accident Investigation Authority of Brazil, where the aircraft, where the state of aircraft manufacturer is. The type certificate for the Embraer for the Phenom 100 is located in Brazil. So their accident investigation authority is assisting us, as well as the Transportation Safety Board of Canada, which is where the engines are manufactured. And we're also being assisted with technical expertise from the airframe manufacturer, Embraer, as well as the engine manufacturer, Pratt & Whitney of Canada. I especially want to thank the American Red Cross, the Army Reserve Unit of Gaithersburg, as well as the local responders. They have been absolutely a pleasure to work with under very trying conditions, and we very much appreciate their unwavering support. As I wrap it up, I just want to point out that this is really just day one of the boots on the ground phase of the investigation. There's a lot that needs to be done, but already a lot has been done. That's the end of my prepared remarks. I'd be glad to take any questions you may have. Back here, yes, sir.
Hi, Mr. Sumwalt, you did use some vernacular there. If you could speak in more relatable terms, what you mean, you say there are a lot of pitches and excursions. This is what the other pilots and others saw how the plane was acting in the air.
Yes, an airplane has three axes. It has a pitch axis, so the longitudinal axis where the nose pitches up and down. It has a roll axis where the wings go from side to side, and it has a yaw axis. So what is being reported to us, and also what is being corroborated by the preliminary look of the flight data recorder information, is that the airplane did pitch up, had pitch excursions as well as roll excursions.
What does that mean? What does it tell you about the cause?
Well, we're not here, and I've said this yesterday, and I didn't say it today, but we're here to collect the factual information. We are not here to determine the cause of the accident. We're here to look at the perishable evidence, which is the information that can go away with the passage of time. So we're here to collect that information and not perform analysis at this point. I'm sorry? Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Did the cockpit voice recorder pick up the pilot's voice, and did he say anything in the seconds leading up to the crash?
Did the cockpit voice recorder pick up the pilot's voice? And yes, it did. And I have not heard the CVR myself, and so I don't know exactly what was said on the CVR, but our investigators have done a preliminary listen of that, and we will be convening a group to perform a very detailed readout of that CVR that will be released at some point. Alan, and then young man from the Washington Post, Ashley.
So, is it possible to give us any information about the speed at various points during the approach, especially in the last few minutes?
Do we have information that we can report to you at this point on the speeds during the approach? And I do not have that information. And again, everything that we have is very preliminary at this point. So Ashley, and then we'll come over here.
In the same vein, you said that the low throttle point was, I believe, 85 knots, and that there was a throttle command and a response to that. Was that in the last 20 or 30 seconds, or where did that occur during the flight?
Instead of repeating erroneous information, let me tell you. The lowest point of airspeed, not throttle position, airspeed was 88 knots. And that occurred about I don't know exactly how many seconds prior to impact that occurred, but I can tell you that the stall warning occurred about 20 seconds before the end of the recording and continued throughout. So let me make sure I've answered your question.
Was that in that time frame, that low throttle speed of 88 knots? Was it in that time frame of 20 seconds, or was that at another point of the flight?
So at what point would the stall warning come on relative to the 88 knots? And that is to be determined at what point this lowest speed came and what point the stall warning enunciated. So we will be looking at that, correlating the information from the flight data recorder as well as the cockpit voice recorder. I'll come here, and then we'll come back over here. So right here.
What does it mean that it was that sounds like it's too slow. Is that too slow to be approaching a runway? And is that a sign that something's wrong with the plane?
Well, what does that mean that it was doing 88 knots? Is that too slow? And that would be that's really why we are here. We are here to determine why was the airplane at that speed and what was the effect of the performance of the aircraft by going 88 knots.
Well, does the stall warning mean it's about to essentially stop going forward?
What does the stall warning mean? It means that there's an impending aerodynamic stall.
What is an aerodynamic stall?
Okay, an aerodynamic stall is where the airflow over the top of the wings gets disrupted because of a high angle of attack. And that means the difference between the wing and the forward movement of the airplane. So at some point, the air cannot flow smoothly over the top of the wing, and so the wing does not have enough lift to support the aircraft. So I think we'll take a question here, and then we're coming back over to here.
That's within an engine stall is when there's actually a mechanical problem in the engine.
Repeat that?
I think I've got it, but I want to clarify.
An aerodynamic stall has nothing to do with the engines. So if you report nothing else, don't say the engine stall. We're talking about an aerodynamic stall right here.
Based on what you've seen with the pitch and and the speed and all those other things, does it appear as though the pilot was struggling with trying to gain control? I guess we're just trying to get a sense as to when you see these things, even in a preliminary way, it's got to tell you something. I'm not asking you to give us a cause. I'm just saying it's got to tell you something about what was happening in those final moments.
What does the pitch excursions, what does that mean? What would the pilot be doing, basically? And we will be analyzing all of that to determine what the pilot's reactions may have been. We can measure force on the control wheel. So we will be trying to determine what the pilot's reaction was, and was that appropriate. I've taken a question from you. Let's see if there's any other ones. Okay, so we'll take two in the back and then one back there. And
You talked about the stall warning, and then I think you said something afterwards about there being a throttle. Could you, I didn't quite get that. Did you say that some point after the stall warning sounded that the pilot must have been pushed on the throttle in response to that warning?
yes, I want to get my notes on that so that I say it exactly like I had initially responded or initially said that. So the lowest recorded airspeed was 88 knots. Sorry I didn't repeat the question, but lowest recorded speed was 88 knots. And at that point of 88 knots, the flight data recorder started showing large pitch and roll excursions. About 2 seconds after the aircraft reached 88 knots, the throttles were advanced and the engines responded.
Member Sumwalt, let me take
One more question.
Okay, do you know what altitude the 88 knot point occurred at? And were there any low airspeed alerts at all issued by the airline?
Do we know the altitude in which the low speed, the stall warning activated, and was there any low speed warnings? So I do not have that information right now. That is information that we have through the flight data recorder. We have that information. We're just trying to give you a thumbnail sketch of what we can at this point. We're not here today. Today is not the day we're here to solve the accident. We're here just to collect that perishable information. We're in the fact-finding stage, and we will conduct a very thorough analysis. But our goal today is not to solve the accident. The second part was there a low-speed warning. There was a stall warning, and we know that. So I want to thank you very much. We'll be keeping you updated. Kelly, we'll be providing updates on this horrible tragedy as we get them. Thank you very much.